All right, today I'm going to do a little bit of a career retrospective. I'm feeling a little bit retrospective and introspective and reflective in general because this week, if you're watching when this publishes, is my birthday. And birthdays have always been a time for me where I reflect, look back, and pause, and also think a little bit about where I'm going, right? It's only natural. At least for me. Other people do their birthdays different. And in the last couple of videos and episodes here, I've been talking a little bit about my business journey. And this is my 8th full-time year in business and my 10th year of business as a whole, right? And when I look back on my business, knowing what I know now, isn't that the magic pill, right? We all wish we could know what we know now earlier in life and so on and so forth. But I'm hoping that this will add some value to you and the others who are tuning in, regardless of where you are in your journey. And so I would say that as I look at my business and I look at how other people have built their businesses, right, folks that I admire, many of them are friends, colleagues, it's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game. It just does you no good. Comparison just kills all the gratitude that you have, right? So in some instances, it can provoke you in a good way to up your game and to do better, right? But by and large, you're running your own race. And yet, I want to share with you some things that I wish I knew earlier, and maybe you'll consider and implement into your own journey. Okay, so number one, the first thing I want to start with is that I wish that I built systems and standard operating procedures way earlier in my business than I did. For many, many years, for most of the years that I've been in business, Chelsea Brinkley, the great Chelsea Brinkley, I love Chelsea with all my heart, has been with me in business. I feel grossly underqualified to be one of her clients. She was an EA in a very, very successful company in the Nashville area and worked with a lot of their C-suite people. So when I found her and we were introduced to one another, I just said, I'm like a blogger and a podcaster. I'm not sure that you'd want to work with somebody like me. And I was fortunate to find her when she was transitioning out of that role and wanted to work for herself. And now she's built a thriving business helping other entrepreneurs like myself find good remote work team options, right? And I'll put all her info in the description here, or you can just go to chelseabrinkley.com and everything is there to find out about Chelsea. And Chelsea started out with me just sort of in an assistant role, like a virtual assistant role. She was a task taker. She wasn't really responsible for outcomes, and that's because I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't know that that was available. And I will never forget one time she called me and she said, or emailed me and she said, okay, Mike, we've been working together for a while now, and we need to have a come to Jesus talk, and we need to meet in person for 2 days and figure out what you're exactly doing, because the way that things are working right now aren't working for you or for me. Not that we weren't working well together. She just saw so much more that I could do and that she could do, frankly. So we had this 2-day meetup in Washington, D.C., and she went through all of my stuff, all of my products, programs, and everything. And she didn't say so because she's a nice and kind and patient person, but she was like probably thinking like, holy cow, this guy's got like a rat's nest of stuff in his business, and that's why no wonder he's running around all the time like a guy with his hair on fire. When I look back on my business, I wish that I thought of those SOPs that Chelsea had so graciously built in for me now in the business way earlier. I say this, and you might say like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Where do I even start? One of the most practical things that we built was a customer service process. Now, if you're anything like me, you run a business where you sell digital products, at least that's part of what you do, or you're collecting credit card payments, or you're doing recurring revenue payments, right? Recurring payments every month. One of the biggest time sucks that you will find is in dealing with customer service requests. Even something as simple as people losing their login or trying to find out where their course is or losing the link. You would think that all these digital programs would do that easily, and people just sometimes lose their information, right? So it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, it's a total time suck though if you don't have an SOP for your customer service. That's a really, really big deal. And I've realized looking back how much time I spent on that stuff once Chelsea took it off of my plate. And she created a whole SOP for it. Another thing, SOPs, a lot of it had to do with marketing, producing my podcast, getting show notes in so that I could batch create the content. That was one of the things I really did not do very well early on. I'll record podcast episodes week to week. And you can imagine, life throws me a curveball. I get sick. You never know what happens. A big gig comes up and I decide to do that instead of recording the podcast episode. And next thing you know, I'm behind a couple of weeks, right? And so we really built SOPs on a lot of these things. And Chelsea did that for me, right? So that's one thing I really, really wish I did. And several years ago, we documented all this content and put it out. And you can actually find these SOPs that we've created for my business and get them at mikekim.com/store. The link is right there. And you'll see the business SOPs. And that's how I run my business today. It's what allowed me to scale my mastermind groups, coaching programs, take speaking engagements, and all that sort of stuff. And I will say that I remember one of the first things I said to her, I said, I know that this is working really well because it's been months since I've logged into Expedia.com to book a flight for myself. Right? I would go down the rabbit trail. I'd buy flights for a trip that I had to take, and I'd start looking at all these other flights to dream destinations, and next thing you know, an hour of my time is gone, right? So I wish I did that much earlier in my business building journey. Number 2, I wish I built my business. Now, this has a lot to do with the SOPs because I was all over the place. But I wish I built my business to hold less energetic space for people. What in the world do you mean, Mike? Let me elaborate. If you're a coach, a consultant, a creative, a freelancer of any kind, you have clients and you are responsible for your clients' results. You are holding energetic space for them. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Think of those clients that like every time you meet with them on a call, you're just like, oh gosh, I feel a little bit drained, or you're nervous before you're going to meet with them. Or you feel almost like you're their counselor or therapist and they're like sharing all these problems with you. Now, I will say that's par for the course. I mean, that is occupational hazard for you and I, right? Like we're going to work with people. We're going to hear about their stuff. We're going to feel their energy. We're going to understand, like we want to help them move forward. And that's a lot to hold. Okay, that is a lot to hold. I will say it again. It's a lot to hold sometimes, right? I've run mastermind groups for years and years and years now. And gosh, you should hear some of the things that people share with us on mastermind calls. I mean, this is like life stuff. And I'm not opposed to them sharing this stuff. I'm just saying it's a lot of energetic space to hold sometimes. Like people tell me if relatives died or their marriage is ending or, they're going bankrupt or, like that. This is stuff that I hear, whether in a public forum like a mastermind group with our groups or they reach out to me and tell me privately. And early on, I did so much more of that because I didn't have the SOPs set up. Right. And I wish that I had in some way, shape, or form done more to sell more digitally based products or ongoing coaching programs where I wasn't as involved. I didn't need to do every call. I could farm out or bring in some other friends of mine and teach some of these courses or these classes with me or without me, right? Just alternate the teaching schedule so that I wouldn't have to hold so much energetic space. There is a limit that you have to how much space you can hold for people, right? You got to realize it. And if you have a family, God help us. You end work, you just heard all of this stuff from your clients that day, and then you're going home, right? You're going back to your family or whatever situation you're in, and you got to be there for them. You can't just check out, right? So I wish early on that I sold some more stuff that could bring in revenue, and I had the SOPs in place for me to do that, right? So that not everything I had to do work-wise would be so energetically taxing, like writing all their content, writing their sales pages, coaching them through like some of the biggest moments in their business and their life, a lot to hold. And I wish I'd done some things systematically to add I love coaching, don't get me wrong. I wish I did some more of that stuff, like sell digital products and stuff that didn't really require as much energy from me, if that makes sense. Now, that ties into number 3. This is one of the biggest requests I have not doing it earlier. Running ads, running social media ads. I think about how cheap Facebook and Instagram ads were when they first were launched into the public. I'm like, gosh, I really missed an opportunity there. I could exponentially grow my email list. I could have grown those email lists to do the previous point, right? Sell some stuff that wouldn't require too much of my energetic space, right? It required me to hold so much energetic space. And I wish till this day that I ran more ads. I wish that I either really, really learned it, and I did try. I learned to a certain extent. I did okay with them. But that I just felt like it was another arm of business that I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole on. And I wish that I hired somebody earlier. I dabbled in it. First person I hired was a gal named Liz Pineda. And then I ended up working with a few other folks like Joseph Bojang, Dwayne Zingali, and now Connie Pack. All four of these people were great for me. I was just in and out. I dabbled in and out, right? And I didn't really just say, here it is, here's the budget every month, set it and forget it. I didn't do that. I wish I did. I think my email list probably would have grown 3 times bigger and definitely 3 times faster than it did if I had done that, right? So I really wish I did that so that I could have a lead gen engine without me working all the time. I was very fortunate in those early days, and even till now, I was very, very fortunate. I want you to hear this. This is very important because not everybody has this same situation. When I started my business, I was married, but little did I know at the time my marriage was going to end. But despite that, my ex was very supportive in terms of me going out and trying new things and meeting people and going to these events. That was never an issue. Me traveling was never an issue. And granted, we didn't have kids. So if I had kids back then, I would have really had a hard time making the connections that I've had in my own career now, because I wouldn't have gone to most of the events that I participated in. In the previous video, I talked a little bit about what I did to future-proof my business, building these relationships and masterminds and going to events and all that. But had my life situation been different, it would not have been as easy to do that, right? So what I've done instead, I probably would have seen that I can't leave home every 3 weeks to go to a different marketing conference, especially during the spring and the fall, which is where when everyone seems to run their events. I would have been forced into doing something different to grow my list and to grow my presence online, and I probably would have invested in ads. When I think about the thousands of dollars a year I probably spent on travel, had I just taken a portion of that and run ads with it, I probably would have exponentially increased the business. I didn't really see how that all fit together because I was just going to event after event after event. And yes, it had a really good result for me. I built all these relationships that I talked about, but it also blinded me from the importance of running these ads, okay, and doing stuff to increase my online presence. That sort of leads me into number 4, managing my money better. I didn't really I'm a gunslinger when it comes to business growth, right? Business development. I just feel like, no, I know how to go out and sell things and make money. I can do that. I'm not a manager. I'm not a bean counter. I don't do spreadsheets. I hate the word budget. All of these things that I'm terrible at. And I just figured as long as money's coming in, I'm fine. That's not how you run a business, by the way, right? And I've learned this the hard way several times. I've had to pay the price for my negligence on that many times throughout my career. It's a funny thing when you're an entrepreneur, right? Life has lessons. Lessons will be learned, and lessons will be repeated until they're learned. And I've learned some pretty big lessons on managing this. So you can hear a little bit of even how I'm thinking right now, right? Me saying if I had set aside just 25% of the money that I use for travel and cut out a couple of those trips, I could have used that and diverted it towards ads. And let's just be real here. Let's not pull any punches. Like how much money you're spending a month, maybe even hundreds of dollars a month on some technology to house your online course, and you've never done anything with it. You're just still paying for it. Like why do we do that? We forget sometimes. We feel like the fee is so negligible that we don't think about it. We don't consider it. And I will say that when I spend money on something, I do use it. If I join a coaching program or a membership or buy a product, I do use it. That's one of my rules, right? But I also didn't see how that applied to my travel plans and how I could have reconfigured some of that in order to grow the business while I was at home. So we all have our blind spots, and this is just something I'm sharing with you now because I've seen that over the years, not just in myself, but in a lot of clients I work with. They're not really seeing where their money is going. They're not being intentional about that. And therefore, they're not able to save. They're not able to sock enough away, right? The general idea of growing a business, you grow it, keep your costs low, you grow the revenue, and then you invest the difference. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's not always easy because of the way our behavior is and our psychology is, right? So I want to encourage you to learn your money psychology, how you think about money. That's been a big journey for me. A couple of things that have really helped me, resources and people. Number one, my tax advisor and bookkeeping agency, The Bottom Line CPA. Shout out to Jessica Stafford. She's been on my show before. During my divorce, my whole financial world was a mess with the accounting of my business and all the expenses and everything. And she and her team saved me. And I remember that conversation. I have a whole podcast episode about it that I'll put into the show notes here that you should absolutely listen to. I've referred so many people to their agency because of what they did for me. And I remember I was speaking with her. I was walking around Universal Studios in Florida. I had just spoken at an event in Florida, and it looked like I was going to get a divorce. And I was just in a really, really tough space emotionally, as you can imagine. I'm walking around Harry Potter world, and I'm in this conversation with her on the phone. And I just let her know what was really, really going on. And she said, Mike, don't worry. We're here. We're going to take care of it. We're going to take care of you. You focus your energy on what you need to focus on and let us take care of this stuff. And she really did. And I'm still with them all these years later because of that. They helped me get my money mindset in order. Number two, another person who's helped me greatly, my good friend Marissa Nielsen, the Live Life Rich podcast, marissanielsen.com. I'll put her link in the description as well. And Marissa is just a ball of energy. She is one of those go-getters in life. She is such an inspiring person. And once I kind of got things together, financially and on the business side and the structure, she coached and mentored me into what to do with all of this. And now I'm in the best place I've ever been financially. And I understand, and I know people who can guide me into the next iteration of what that all looks like, right? Number three, a book called The Psychology of Money. You need to get this book, The Psychology of Money. I picked it up about a year ago, and just walking through Barnes & Noble, I'm really grateful I went to the store that day. I saw it on the end of a shelf, and I just picked it up. And I kid you not, at least two people in that Barnes & Noble saw me with that book, and they said, oh, that's a great book. That's a great book. And when I was checking out at the cashier, the guy said, oh, this is a great book, you young guy. And I was like, I must be onto something. The Psychology of Money. Great, great book. Easy to digest. I've read it multiple times. I read it like a religious devotional. Honestly, these chapters are short, and I need to drum into my thick head how I think about money. Now, the last resource I want to share with you that really helped me shift my money mindset is Ramit Sethi. Ramit has a platform called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. He's got a best-selling book about the same title. He just had a Netflix special come out that you should check out, right? And what I really learned from Ramit was my money psychology. And it's kind of like the best way that I can describe it, he has these things called money dials. And he talks about how all of us have different things that we want to do with our money, right? Some of us are willing to spend a ton of money on convenience. And if that's not one of the things that's your money dial, you'll think that anybody who pays for something for convenience sake is stupid. So for example, convenience is one of my big money dials. I will order Uber Eats anytime to save some time. I enjoy cooking, but I will order Uber Eats, especially if I didn't have lunch prepped the day before. And I will just order it for the sake of time so that I can get to work. If I'm going into a big city, I will pay for the valet parking. So I don't have to do 10 minutes of frustrating driving around the circles to park the car, right? And I've been with friends, people, I said, how could you pay $15 for valet parking? Like, we can find a spot in 10 minutes. And to me, it's not just the 10 minutes you save. It is the absolute anguish and frustration. You live in New York City and you try to find parking. You'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. There are other people who will spend on luxury items. I'm not one of those people. I buy nice things and I use them for years and years and years. I do not understand people who will shell out $1,000 for a pair of shoes, or, it's more for the ladies. They'll work out with thousands of dollars for a handbag. I just don't get it. Or I don't get it. Right. I drive a very, very old car. That's just not one of those things that is important to me. Right. But I'll spend on flying first class because it's convenient, because I can actually rest. I'm a tall guy, so I don't like to sit and coach. It's uncomfortable for me. I will spend money on getting a massage because it is therapeutic and it releases a lot of the stress I have. So those are the money dials piece is a huge part of what I learned from Ramit. And I give him a lot of credit because I've never heard anyone say these things this way. He has a whole thing. You pick up his book or watch the Netflix special, absolutely vital in me understanding my psychology around money, right? So all that said, I wish, looking back on my business, that I understood how to manage my money better, how to manage those things better. And number 5, that leads me into, and I alluded to this on the previous a couple of episodes ago. I wish earlier on I joined more mastermind groups. And this is for my business, right? I wish I joined more mastermind groups. Better connections, more connections, bigger connections. I wish I took that a little bit more seriously. I'd been in a group for a number of years that was really good. And by the end of the group, like, it was what it was, right? It was great. It was great. And also, I wish that I continued to push myself. It's not that I would have left that group. I just would have been joining other groups. And when I look at a lot of the people in the industry that I'm in, this personal brand industry, a lot of them, and again, I shared this a couple episodes ago, many of them are doing really, really well because of those relationships that they formed early on. And I've done well, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also am like, I had opportunities to join other groups, and I didn't do it. And part of it, don't you love how life trickles down? It's because I wasn't managing my money well, because I didn't run ads, because I didn't build my business to hold less energetic space for others, and I didn't have the systems and the SOPs. It's just this whole list of things that I wish, and they all tie into one another. So here's I'm a little bit retrospective of my business. It's my birthday week and all that. As I look forward to what I want to do in the future, these things are absolutely at the forefront of my mind. They're absolutely at the forefront of what I intend to be more intentional about. And I have been intentional about these things for the last several years. But looking back when I started, I really do wish I understood this more. And so my pain is your blessing, right? I hope you'll take some of this to heart and take action on these things. You can even start with getting some of the books that I recommended, which are right in the description for the podcast and for the YouTube video. If you enjoyed this episode and you're watching on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content releases. Leave a comment if anything resonated with you or if you got a question on anything. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in there. If you haven't done so already, please leave a rating or a review for me on your podcast platform of choice. It helps get word out about the show. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it with somebody. Send someone this episode. Ask them to tune in. I just am really here to just share what I know, help you move forward in your business and in your life. Till next time, live your message, love your work, leave your mark on the world. Thanks for being with me all these years or months or weeks or however long we've been together. I'm going to try to have a good week this week with celebrating my birthday with loved ones and friends, and I will see you back here on the next episode.